Hello, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Canisius, a web series where we connect the greater Canisius community with the students at 1180 Delaware Avenue. Today, my guest is Lieutenant Commander Scott Elwell, an instructor at the U.S. Naval Test Pilot School in Patuxent, Maryland. He lives in Maryland with his wife, Jamie, and his 6-year-old daughter. Scott has flown in over 40 aircraft, including the FA-18s off carriers, and before becoming an instructor, he was a test pilot at the Naval Air Weapons Station in China Lake. Scott earned a Bachelor of Science in Engineering Technology from RIT and received his commission from the NROTC program. Can you just reflect on what it meant to attend a Jesuit high school and talk about your 4 years at Canisius?
So I think, when you told me you were going to be asking me these questions the other day, just looking at the questions, it's really hard to capture kind of all the experiences that I got basically growing up going to Canisius, and to really nail it down to one thing that I learned while I was there is really hard to do, because there's so much that I learned and so much as I grew and I developed at Canisius High School, and getting that Jesuit education. I think one of the more important pieces that I learned was the whole concept of being men for others, right? So, you're never, whenever you're part of a team, right, you're always, you should always be working with your team. You should always be helping other people. And that is the best way to be a good leader. And in the Navy, as an officer, you need to be able to exhibit good leadership qualities. And I think one of the most important pieces is ensuring that you are kind of living for your team. You're there to help everyone else out around you, and you're not just looking out for yourself. You're not, that's not the purpose. And you see that with, in the leadership skills for your team, but also in terms of your community. You need to be going out still, volunteering in your community and making your community a better place for yourself, for your family, for everyone else to live in. And that concept from Canisius, being a man for others, I think is probably one of the more important things that I learned from there.
So what point after Canisius, maybe when you were at the Rochester Institute of Technology, did a career serving our country come into your mind?
So actually, my dad was an Air Force pilot. And so I knew I wanted to join the military in some capacity from a very early age. There's pictures of me when I'm like 7, 8 years old at air shows with my mom and with my dad, looking at all these different airplanes, going to Thunder over Niagara Air Show almost every year, looking at the airplanes and growing up wanting to do that. So even when I was, in high school, before I even got to college, I knew I wanted to be a pilot. I knew I wanted to join the military and serve in our country. And that was even hammered home even further when I was at Canisius when 9/11 happened. I was a junior at Canisius when that happened. That made me want to join, regardless of what I ended up doing, whether I was going to be a pilot, whether I was going to be, boots on the ground somewhere. I knew I wanted to do something at that point for sure. So it's kind of always been something I've wanted to do.
Talk a little bit about the process of how you became not only an aviator, but qualified for the type of aircraft that you've been able to fly.
So generally, in order to fly F-18s, you have to do really well, in flight school. And it all comes down to a little bit of luck as well. You just need to put the effort in, work hard, do the best you can, and hope that the chips kind of fall the way you want them to. It's really, I don't think anyone can come out and say that they got to where they got, or they were able to fly what they get to fly, based off of basically just their skills alone. A lot of it comes down to timing. It comes down to the support network you have around you. But in general, you need to do really well in primary flight school. You have to have, the way the Navy grades is, they compare you to the previous, I believe, a 2,000 pilots to go through flight school, and you have to do better than 50%. So you have to do better than average on all your flight grades in order to even get selected to go tailhook aviation, where you're going to land on a carrier. And then once you get to the way it was when I was going through, and it's changed a little bit now, I believe, but you then had to go to intermediates, and now you're flying in intermediates, flying the T-45, and you have to do really well, in particular doing formation flying and instrument flying, because that's very important for the F-18. So you have to do really well in there. And then there has to be a slot available for you to go fly the F-18. And if there is, and you do well enough in intermediates, you'll get selected for advanced, where you go and you learn how to fly fighter tactics and all that kind of stuff that you're going to need in the F-18, as well as go to the boat and start landing on an aircraft carrier. And then once you complete with that, then you head over to the replacement air group, where you learn to fly your tactical platform, in my case, the F-18. And they look at you and they decide, hey, can this guy fly? Can he go up there and can he tactically operate an airplane by himself, or is he going to need somebody in the back seat to kind of help him out a little bit? At least that's what all the single seat guys say. So if you do really well, they'll send you single seat, and if you struggle a little bit, you'll generally go to a 2-seat platform. At least, again, what single seat guys will always tell you. And then basically, when you apply to get to go to test pilot school, do test pilot kind of stuff, what they look at is have you done well? Do you work hard? Are you a hard worker? Do you play well with others? Can you communicate effectively? And do you have an engineering background? And if you have that engineering background, if you've done well in your fleet tour, then they'll select you. And again, timing has to be right. There has to be slots available. Sometimes there's 4 or 5 slots available. Sometimes there's only 2. And when I was going through, I think there was 4 F-18 guys that were picked up for my test pilot school class. So I was fairly lucky that there was actual slots open for me. And then I got into test pilot school. And then from there, to come back as an instructor, you have to want to do it, because it's a lot of hard work, a lot of grading. So you have to want to do it to really come back. And then the test pilot school has to want you to come back. So they actually kind of keep a list of individuals who have graduated from the school of, hey, is this somebody that would fit in well here as an instructor, or is this somebody that that we don't really want to come back? And a lot of that comes down to personality. Do you have a good attitude? Which is huge in general. Having a good attitude is big.
So, today we have 16, 17, 18-year-old young men who, are enduring a lot of unprecedented restrictions with COVID, and they're not able to be exposed to the college tours and a lot of the just physical interactive stuff that they might have experienced over these last few months, while their parents kind of think about what their future might hold. What advice would you have? I mean, you were in those seats 20 years ago. What advice do you have based on your experiences so far to those kids?
So the one thing I would say is, when I went to college, I knew I wanted to be in the Navy. I knew I wanted to be a pilot, but I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I picked a major that I thought would help me get to the end goal of becoming a pilot. And in the end, I ended up changing majors. I started out as a physics major. I ended up going to mechanical engineering technology. So, I mean, I think going to college, you should be understanding that you can't just focus completely 100% on only schoolwork. You need to be able to broaden your experiences. And that's one thing that I learned within a couple of years of getting to college is, I left Canisius, and it was great. I was like, you know what? I don't need to go to church every weekend, right? But then within a year, I'd say, of going to college, I recognized that I was missing something in my life. And, I needed to have that, you need that experience. I kind of look at it right now as almost like a tripod in my life, where, I need to have the academic piece, the physical piece, going out and staying in shape and all that kind of good stuff. And then you also need the spiritual piece in your life. And if any of those kind of legs fall out or go missing, then life can get a little bit more difficult. So I'd recommend, when guys go to college, just kind of keep an open mind, try and experience new things, meet new people, and continually develop yourself. Not just, it's not all about just learning engineering or learning this or learning that, right? So kind of like what you learn at Canisius, you need to be able to kind of look at the broad spectrum and continue to develop yourself as a person. Don't be that guy that just shows up and takes all the engineering electives or all the whatever. Like, look at the history, look at English literature, look at all that kind of stuff, because it's very important to have a well-rounded personality, a well-rounded experience, as opposed to just being so laser focused that you miss the greater purpose of life. That's the thing I would say.
Scott, that's a great answer. Just one last question. You chose to go into the Navy. You mentioned your dad was in the Air Force. You went ROTC through a really well-known engineering and technical school at RIT, but I'm sure you've flown with or served with Annapolis guys. To the student who is trying to figure out their path into the armed services, as unbiasedly as possible, can you just give some advice as branch and academy versus ROTC, or even enlistment, and just kind of offer your perspective and your experience on that?
Yeah, I think like I said before, a lot of it has to do with your attitude. Just enjoy wherever you end up going, and things will work out for you. It'll either work out or it won't. Just enjoy where you're at that moment. There's pluses and minuses to all the different avenues. I had a lot of friends and classmates from Canisius who enlisted as an opportunity to serve their country, and they had a great experience with it. I think you get a good experience from that. You really get to, you still get to serve your country. You still get to get money for college if that's what you want to do. So it's definitely a great viable option for people to do that. And it gives you a little bit more opportunity to find yourself and understand and realize what you want to do with your life, instead of necessarily jumping in and trying to go get a major in college right away. Now, in terms of going to ROTC or going to an academy, in my perspective, when I was at Canisius, all I wanted to do was go to the Naval Academy. But for various reasons, it didn't end up happening. But, that ended up being one of the best things to ever happen to me personally, because going to a normal school, I like to put normal school, I like to say it that way. There's mostly there's a lot of academy guys that I work with, so I call myself the normal guy. It's kind of nice because in a way I was able to experience kind of life outside the military, and it helped me develop myself and learn how to be hard on myself, and there's no one hanging over you like you'll get at the academy, making sure that your grades are good or making sure that you're somewhere on time and all that. So you really do have to kind of develop that sense yourself, which I think really helped me, considering, I went through Catholic school my whole life. I always had a support network around me that was always there for me. And then going to a non-academy place was nice because it helped me learn to basically set my own boundaries. And I think that really, really helped when I ended up going to flight school. That being said, the academies are always a good option. They're a great school. You get a lot of great experiences. And like I said, so many people at this point in their careers in the Navy are academy grads. And so you get that networking piece of it. You get to meet guys at the academy that you will then follow along in your career for the next 20, 25, 30 years. And you can all talk about the great experiences you had at the service academy. And so from that perspective, the kind of network that you build going to the academies, that is a plus of going to a service academy. Like for my ROTC unit, I think at this point, I'm the only one from my class that's still active duty. So I don't have that necessarily support network, just the people I've met along the way, which is important in itself. But there's always that ability to kind of like when you see another Canisius grad, you can always high five and talk about Paul Zablocki that you met back in the day, and be like, oh yeah, I remember when I remember when Paul used to come around the hallway. So you guys can all talk about that. In that regards, I don't really have that. So yeah, there's pluses and minuses to anything you do here.
Scott, I want to thank you first for your service to our country. You chose to join at a very challenging time in our nation's history. So thank you for keeping us safe and for defending the Constitution and all the citizens here, and for instructing your fellow sailors and aviators. And thank you for taking the time to share your insights with the students and the teachers here at Canisius. Like I said when we started talking about this, you have an experience that few other Canisius alums can offer to a conversation like this. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate you reaching out to me, Paul. It's been great. Like I said at the very beginning of this interview, the experiences that I had at Canisius, the teachers that I had, left a huge mark on me, and I would not at all be here where I am today if not for the teachers that I really came across, and the upperclassmen that I came across that looked out for me while I was there. So